right, folks, we are live. December 20th, 2009. Merry Christmas to everybody. I got to kick it off with this Washington Post headline out of today. Copenhagen climate deal shows new world order may be led by U.S. and China. And why is this important? You see, when someone like Jason Bermas or Alex Jones talks about Copenhagen being about global government and a one world order, a new world order, we are often dismissed out of hand. Oh, they're kooks. Oh, they're crazy. How dare they make such a statement? However, 10 days ago, when the Wall Street Journal has a headline called President Obama and a New World Order actually exists. You see, when they promote global governance, when they promote the idea of a new world order, it's okay to talk about it. But then when you go in and you read the Copenhagen Treaty, almost 200 pages, and you find out that the term government appears over 20 times, that they are trying to set up a pillar of world government, and the term taxation and cap and trade scheme is in there over a dozen times, which will be regulated by non-elected entities of the IPCC, a new world order doesn't sound that great. And then we become critical of it. And then again, out of hand, we are dismissed. Why is that? Let me read some of this, and it's got our good friend Zbigniew Brzezinski in it as well. Copenhagen, if the talks that resulted in an imperfect deal to combat global warming provided anything, it was a glimpse into a new world order in which international diplomacy will increasingly be shaped by the United States and emerging powers, most notably China. And if you've listened to this program, I have discussed how us as Westerners have slowly slided towards this Eastern socialist communist philosophy. As these same communists and socialists, China in particular, move towards westernized styles of clothing and McDonald's, see, they remain in slavery. They just get some of the perks of the Western world. And we still have the perks of the Western world, but we get taken further into slavery. And that's really what the New World Order is. Friday's agreement, sources involved, the talk said, boiled down to President Obama and Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao personally hammering out a pact both could live with, even if many other leaders could not, when even squelched by his own neighbors' protests. And let's not forget, we have not seen any of the documentation that was signed on in this Copenhagen Treaty. We only saw the initial agreement that everybody was supposed to sign on, something like 191 nations. Apparently, 11 nations made some kind of an agreement, but as far as I know, it was not that initial treaty. And if you don't think this is about globalism, you don't think this has gone on incrementally over many administrations, look whose name pops up. Ever since the concept of a G2 was proposed this year by former U.S. National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski, the idea that the United States and China together are going to solve the world's problems has been poo-pooed by both Americans and Chinese officials. Save the world from what? From your imaginary man-made global warming? I have a story in front of me. It's somewhere in my stacker here where they're admitting that over the last 10 years, the atmosphere has gotten cooler. It's out of MSNBC.com. It drives me nuts. I go into the science section, the environment section, I see this article, and then right next to it is 8 ways to stop global warming. And we're going to get into that later, but what are one of the 8 ways? Well, chemtrails, of course. Now, they don't say chemtrails. They say shooting pollutants into the upper atmosphere to block the sun's rays, a.k.a. chemtrails. Or prolonged condensation trails, as Rosalind Peterson of CaliforniaSkywatch.com likes to call them. So on one hand, they're admitting the planet and the atmosphere is cooling. On the other, they're trying to trick you into believing that man-made global warming is a reason for world government and world taxation. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars.com. Back after this.
From another dimension. If you believe in redemption, calling to you from another dimension. If you believe in redemption, I'm calling to you from another dimension.
Now, we did have a great victory by exposing the fraud that was the Copenhagen summit over the last month or so. But it wasn't a full victory. They still signed onto some wacky, unbelievable agreement where, again, man is the enemy and the commoner will be taxed for breathing for an invisible substance known as carbon dioxide. One of the keys to the universe, a life force for plants. This harmful, toxic gas, according to the EPA, just on time for the Copenhagen Climate Summit, by the way. They love to time this stuff all together. EPA declares carbon dioxide a harmful, toxic gas. Ooh, carbon dioxide, folks. And I keep hearing about this carbon footprint and how bad we are and how we have to reduce emissions. Read in between the lines. This means less for you and more control for them. Now, why do I say it's just a partial victory? Because of headlines like this one, and we're going to get to this video in just a moment. Copenhagen Climate Summit plan for the European Union to police countries' emissions. So in other words, an illegitimate international organization that started up as trade agreements between countries is now given oversight and power over the environment and the people. The ultimate oversight and power for them to come in and say, no, you can't drive that car. No, you can't have that child. No, you can't live in that home. Yes, you can pay more taxes. And again, the smaller gas stations are kind of picking up on this and saying, look, if this cap and trade legislation is passed here in the United States, it's going to go up 75 cents to $1.50 a gallon of gas. But you don't see that when you pull into a Shell. You don't see that when you pull into a BP. You don't see that when you pull into an Exxon. Why is that? Because these are the people who are calling for a global climate tax. That's what cap and trade is. They want to see it happen. So I'm going to play this video of Mr. New World Order himself, Gordon Brown, the unelected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And when I say Mr. New World Order himself, this guy got up before the CBI before he was Prime Minister and must have used the term a dozen to 24 times. We've got a little bit of it coming up in my next film, Invisible Empire. And he has promoted this thing just over the top in the last 12 months, calling for it at the G20, calling at it at church services, coming to this country before Congress and discussing a new global deal, a new global deal and a new world order. So here he is, Prime Minister Brown, talking about the EU policing countries' emissions. Hit the clip.
A huge opportunity for new jobs, new industries and new services. We believe that in the United Kingdom we can create something in the order of 400,000 jobs over the next few years from our low-carbon industries and services alone. But I also want to emphasise that France and Britain, and I believe all the other European countries, recognise that to make possible a climate change deal which secures the future of our environment, we have to work together to provide sufficient finance so that our developing country partners can make the changes that are necessary in their climate change policies to benefit the whole world. So there's never been any doubt that we would have to put up some money from the richest countries. We have already agreed that there is money in the order of $10 billion to be found over the next 3 years. We are able to finance that from the money that we are announcing today, and I believe the rest of the European Union will come on board. This is the joint enterprise of France, Britain and many other European countries to make possible what I believe is absolutely essential for the world, and that's a climate change agreement.
It doesn't matter that the ClimateGate emails are out. It doesn't matter that we know that they faked the data. It doesn't matter that they admit that the data they did grab, they destroyed so no one else could look at it. Phil Jones resigned. Okay? Michael Mann is being investigated. You're not allowed to ask these questions at the actual summit. When a gentleman who's a longtime journalist and a documentary filmmaker what is it? Not Evil, Just Wrong, Global Warming. That's his film. It's getting big talk amongst independent and documentary circles. When he goes up and asks a question about it, the guy demonizes him, number one, for talking about emails, saying that they were private, and he's not going to demean himself by discussing private material. Excuse me? These people were funded in the hundreds of millions of dollars for so-called the public good. All of these things should have been public from day one. Then he won't address the question. Then when this man approaches him after his speech to get an answer, what happens? United Nations world government goons come over and say, no dice, pal. Put down the camera. We don't want to get physical with you, buddy, but we will.